Today, let's make a patchwork table runner perfect for spring. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today we are going to be making a patchwork table runner using a bunch of different colors of cotton fabrics, so super easy to make. And I already drafted out the idea that I wanted to go with this. So to do this, you're just going to want some fabric as well as maybe a rotary cutter, a ruler, scissors would work here too. Now I'm using different sizes of fat quarters as well as a half yard, and then this blue, which this is going to be for the back of my table runner as well as some of the strips on the front, is a yard. So I would say to have anywhere from a fat quarter to a yard of 5 different colors of that fabric. In addition, you're going to want some pins as well as some thread. Now I am not going to be quilting any of this, so you are just going to basically need one type of thread. If you want to do some quilting and top stitching, you could definitely use another color. Now it's time to start cutting out our strips. So the length is always the same for my strips, which was 24 inches. And then I varied the width of these. So I had 2 7-inch wide, 5 6-inch wide, 1 4-inch wide, and then 3 3-inch wide. But all of them were 24 inches tall. So a lot of this just depends on how you want to lay out your strips, what type of pattern you want it to have. If you want it to be something that, you also can take into account where you can start to divide up that 24-inch strip so there's multiple pieces of fabric within it. I did a white as well, so that just to give it a really nice contrast, I ended up using a piece of paper to just help me keep track of everything that I was doing so I knew which fabric went where. As you can see here, I ended up getting some that were a little less than 24 inches, and I started to divide those so that I could kind of have one 24-inch strip that would also have 2 different colors within it. So this just gave my patchwork table runner a little bit more design and decoration. So you can see here it's all laid out. So I had to add some fabric in to take into account the seam allowance when I was doing, like, for example, these strips that are 2 or 3 different fabrics coming together. So that's just something to think about if you're interested in that as well. So now the first step was to start making the full strip for those pieces that are actually 2 fabrics that we're going to be sewing together. So with right sides of the fabric matching, I'm going to bring them and then just pin across that short edge so that I can take a seam. So this is a very simple seam we're going to be taking, and this is going to allow us to get that one long strip. And now I'm going to repeat this for all the other pieces that also need to come together as one long strip. So this is just very simple, just pinning everything up nice and neat. You could use pins, you could also use quilting clips if you were more comfortable with those. And then once you have everything pinned, we're just going to go straight through and just take a regular straight stitch. As you can see here, I did follow the chain stitching method where I would go all the way through with one of those strips, then I would back stitch it, and then I would just immediately start working on the next strip. This way it was just a little quicker and easier to do. Always be sure to back tack your stitches so that it stays in place, but then once you have that done and you continue going straight, you can then just add the next strip or column that you want to sew, and then you could just continue on your way right there. And it's using less thread for you, and it's also making a little bit more of an efficient process since we do have so many strips that we need to get through. So here is my final collection of all the pieces of fabric that are sewn together. So I just went through with my scissors and started to divide them up. So this was very easy, and this allows you to get those finalized strips so that we'll be able to press them out. So you're just looking for where the thread is between them and just clipping it right across. So with that said, it is now time to press these seams open so that they lay nice and flat. So with your fabric facing down and then that seam facing up, we're just going to use our iron to just slowly open these so that when it comes time to combine all the strips together, it will lay flatter for us and we'll get a nice smooth finished product at the end. So I went ahead and just also ironed the rest of the strip as well. That way it all was nice and smooth and there wasn't any wrinkles or the fabric wasn't bulging up. You could also have pressed your fabric open at the beginning so that all you had to do was press open the seam now. So you can see we have all of these strips are the same height or approximately the same height. We will go through and kind of trim those up later, but now what's time to do is start to actually build out our table runner. So I'm going to take one of my strips and with the matching strip on the other side and fold them together with right sides together. And then I'm going to take a seam along that long edge. So instead of doing the short edge this time, I'm going to be pinning along that long edge. And then I'm just going to be taking a regular seam, and I'm going to repeat this step for however many strips I have in my table runner. So if you had a longer table runner, so you have more strips, just be sure to match all of them up with right sides together, doing 2 at a time. And then if you have a spot where you do have those seams matching, be sure that that's laying nice and flat when you go through and take that straight stitch. So as you can see here, I'm now going through, taking that stitch, back tacking, and then continuing on with that seam. And I continued this for each of the other strips. So once everything was sewed, very similar to before, we're now just going to be pressing that seam open so that it will lay nice and flat. Since this is cotton, it should lay nice and flat for you, and you're just going to repeat this for all of the strips you have. So the next step, very similar to before, is just building these out so that you start putting 2 and 2 together so that we're just getting more and more of those pieces. It's a very repetitive process, but once you kind of get the steps down, it's very quick to go through. So now taking my new strip of fabric, I'm now going to place this with another one with right sides together on top, and then I will pin it up along that long edge, and then I'm just going to be taking a seam. And I'm just going to be repeating this process for however many strips I have left so that once I have it all pinned up, I can just go through and take that nice straight stitch. And just as a reminder, whenever you are doing these stitches, be sure to back tack so that it's staying in place and you don't have to worry about it coming undone. So here's just a really quick little view so you can see everything is laying nice and flat and smooth. When we have those pieces where it's multiple fabric coming together, I am pinning it so that both of those pieces, so the kind of seam allowance on either side is staying down. I don't have to worry about it bulking up. And now I'm just going to continue on my way of sewing everything together, making sure that I'm very cautious when I go over the 2 pieces of fabric. And this is what my table runner now looks like. It looks so good. Now we're kind of getting closer into the final steps of just trimming everything up so that we can then add the backing. So you can see along that one edge, it's not exactly straight, neither is the other long edge. So I'm just going to go through and kind of trim some of this up using a ruler as well as a rotary cutter. And then I have my rotary mat as well. And this will allow it to just be a very quick and simple step to just get that extra fabric off. But if you don't have a rotary cutter or a ruler, scissors would definitely work here as well. You do not need this to complete this step. So this is what my table runner looks like. It's coming together really nicely. And now it's time to start working on the back. So you can see I have my table runner on that fabric I was going to use for the back, and it's a little too short, but I do have the extra fabric at the bottom. So I'm just going to be cutting off this extra fabric on the side, and I'm going to be placing it on the bottom so that I can see how much I need. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut this, and then I'm going to sew these 2 pieces of fabric together so that I can get the correct size backing that I would need to match my table runner. So this is what it looks like after I took that seam. Now it's time to match our table runner top with the bottom, so with right sides together, matching these up, and then I'm just going to be pinning all the way across. But when I start to pin these, I am going to be leaving a gap. So as you can see here that I have my pin started, I'm going to be going all the way around. So for 3 of the sides, and then the 4th side, I am leaving a gap. Now my gap's going to be 6 inches. You can make this however big or small you want, so that you just need to be able to turn your fabric right side out. So for the gap, I do add 2 pins so that I know that's where I need to stop and start. And now I'm just going to go through and take my straight stitch, being sure to back tack when I start and when I stop, and just go through my process of sewing everything together so that the back and the front can come together as one, and then the table runner will be ready to turn right side out. Now when you're going through, after you do this seam, if you notice you have extra fabric and you want to make it less bulky, you could definitely clip some of that fabric as well as clip the corners so that it will lay nice and flat and you don't have to worry about it bulking up at any point. So that's just what I'm doing here, is going through and making sure that there's not too much extra fabric. Now at the opening, I'm just going to very carefully start pressing this right side out, and this is what it looks like. I absolutely love how it turned out. I did go ahead and do one final iron to just press everything together. I have an ironing mat, so I just put that on the floor so it'd be easier. And then once I did that, I went ahead and top stitched all the way around the table runner. So this allowed us to have that opening closed that we used for turning. Stuffing decided she wanted to help and get on the table runner. But this is what our mat looks like. I absolutely love it. At this point you could be done. I decided to add a little extra detail, and I actually knitted some little flowers. I will include a link, as this was not my pattern for how to knit them, but I'm just going to be adding these little flowers that I added buttons to so that it kind of matches one of my fabrics. And this is what the final table runner looks like. I think it turned out really well. I love the different colors and how they came together. I think that this is a really pretty blue table runner, perfect for spring. If you like this video and you want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe. There's also a link in my description box for my Etsy store that has a lot of really fun patterns in case you're interested in more DIY products. Thanks for watching.